Hello and welcome to Children in Our Lives, a program where children and adults speak about violence against children. Over 8 weeks, we will discuss how we relate with children. In each show, we will explore a theme from different angles, and we will begin with a true story as reported to Raising Voices. We will then discuss the issue here in the studio with invited guests, then go to the community to hear from different Ugandans what they think about the issue. Today, we focus on corporal punishment. Why does it happen? What's wrong with it? Let's begin with a story.
Good evening. I'm very glad to see you this evening, and it's wonderful to see you coming. We started when we were very few, but now it's growing. Hey, Zibidai, you also came. Now, tonight the story I'm going to tell you is about a boy. Actually, it's a story that I got from our friends in Raising Voices. Because it is true, I'm not going to tell you the actual name of the boy. I will call him Chizito. It is not his name, but I will call him Chizito. I'm changing the place, I'm changing the people involved and the boy, so that we understand the story, but we don't put the boy in trouble. Is that all right? So I'm calling the boy Chizito. Chizito is a 14-year-old boy. But I would really want you to listen to this story carefully. It's a story that could happen to you. It's a story that could happen to your child, to your brother. And I want you to consider, if it happened to you, what would you do? Huh? This story, how does the story make you feel? Now, Chizito is an ordinary boy from an ordinary family, like all our families around. And 14 years old, he goes to school. So this morning, Chizito wakes up, prepares to go to school, of course makes sure that he has fetched the water, and finally goes to school. Meets the other kids, they play, and it's time to go to class. The first lesson is mathematics. Hey, you can see those who fear the mathematics. The first lesson is mathematics. The kids are in class, ready for their mathematics, and their teacher, I'm calling the teacher Mr. Odeke. Their teacher, Mr. Odeke, when he comes, he is in a very bad mood. He comes in really angry. And now the kids know trouble. He looks at them, and he had taken the books for marking the previous night. He just throws the books down. And he says, "You idiots! You fools! I spend all my precious time teaching you. And none of you can get 10 points, 10 out of 10? 10 out of 10. You know what he does? Hey, and gets the one that is well seasoned. Mr. Deke gets into the class. Now, of course, when he was beating, it was indiscriminate. Now, poor Chizito was one of the kids who were hit on the head. And Chizito, when he was young, he had been burnt by a candle on the head. And he had a small scar, which had already recovered. But now, tonight, the stick landed in the scar. Some blood came out, and the teacher was so angry, and he was telling them how stupid they are. 2 days later, 3 days later, Chizito's wound started becoming big.
A wound on the head.
A wound on the head. The scar now becomes a wound. it started swelling. And Chizito became very uncomfortable. He started coming late to school. At school, he couldn't do his work properly because now the head was swelling. He couldn't even see properly. Even chewing the food became difficult. And Odeke was saying, now, any of you, if you fail your lessons, you will become like Chizito. Hey! And he had his, and you know, he would tell them that and actually laugh. Spare the rod and spoil the child. And poor Chizito, the head was becoming bigger and bigger. The wound was becoming deeper and deeper. So, poor Chizito, the wound became worse. Unfortunately, his parents were poor. They didn't have enough money to take him to hospital. So the mother started getting some herbs and putting on, but the wound became worse and worse. They tried different clinics, but of course they didn't have the money, so they sold the few chicken they had. Money was not enough. They continued being referred to bigger dispensaries and bigger hospitals. They sold the few goats. The only one cow they had in the compound was sold for the treatment of Chizito. And Mr. Deke continued teaching, beating other children. It's a year now. Chizito is just at home. What the father had done, after Chizito was staying at home for so long, was to buy him a small radio to entertain him. So, Chizito would just lie at home and listen, and one day, he had a program about children who are beaten, and if they are beaten, the cases are supposed to be reported to police.
Children's rights.
Yes. So when the father came to see him as usual, Chizito said, now, Father, please report my case to police. Now, the father did not know previously that he could report such a case to police. This was the first time he was hearing that beating children, injuring them was criminal and was punishable by the law. The father had run around to the LOCs looking for help. He had run to school, and you know what the headmaster told him?
No.
The headmaster said, those children of yours, we tried to help them. The teachers are trying to assist them, but the children are stubborn. Teachers are sacrificing. They are paid badly, but they are trying to help you. Yeah, the kids were now to blame. And he said, anyway, if you had reported this case earlier, maybe I would have done anything. But now you took too long, it's too late.
That school had been messed up by that time.
It's not only that school. It's most of the schools where we send our children. Therefore, when this issue of reporting to police came to their mind, although it had taken long, they realized that it's never too late. If you know someone, if this has happened to you, if it is happening to other children, it's never too late to report the matter to police. For now, that's the story I wanted to tell.
That is indeed a moving story. Remember, this and countless other stories like it happen regularly in our country. In the studio with me right now, I have two people to discuss this issue. I have Mr. Deepak Naka from Raising Voices, co-director, and I have a student, Mr. Stanley Kamoga from Faiha High School. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Deepak, at Raising Voices, you've worked a lot with students and schools. What do you have to say about corporal punishment?
Well, you see, as we saw in this film, many teachers resort to corporal punishment because simply they don't know what else to do. And what we are saying at Raising Voices is that actually corporal punishment is not a very effective way of helping children learn. Many teachers say that, but what's wrong with corporal punishment? And what we are saying to teachers is that corporal punishment, all it does is associate pain with something that the child did. It doesn't teach the child what was wrong with what they did. Yeah. So we keep doing that again and again, and every time a child makes a mistake, we associate the pain, but we don't teach the child what was wrong with that behavior. So that's what we've been doing with all our activities at Raising Voices, is helping teachers, administrators, even parents understand that there are better ways of teaching children instead of beating them, using violence against them.
So Stanley, in your opinion, what is violence against children?
Violence against children simply means that taking use of children's ignorance about their rights and ending up harming them.
How did you get involved in this project, working with Raising Voices and preventing violence against children?
I'm an old boy of St. Peter's Primary School, Kanyanya, which partnered with Raising Voices in order to make that school a safer school for children. Now, I was one of the committee members of the children's committee of that school, aiming at making our school a safer school. Now, from there, I saw that many of children in our community, people who are known to them, are harming them. For instance, their parents are supposed to be protecting them, but instead they end up harming them. They are making them do much work, exploiting them, and others are sexually abused, mostly girls. Also, others are denied the chance to go to school. Others are leaving home because of hostile ways at home. So they end up ending up to streets. Now I saw that prevention is better than cure. So if I see someone who is his or her rights are violated, I can report to Raising Voices because I have access to them.
Okay, so why did you choose to be involved in this? Did something happen to you in your childhood?
No, but I've seen many who have been suffering their rights being abused.
So, in Uganda, how big do you think this problem is?
It's very big, actually. And the Ministry of Education, for example, has taken responsibility of responding to that. In a study that we did at Raising Voices, we talked with about 1,400 children, about 1,100 adults all over Uganda in many different places. And more than 60% of children said that they experience violence regularly at school. Not just once or twice, but at least 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah, so that's a lot of children. And the ministry has issued a circular. In fact, the ministry has issued guidelines to all the schools that corporal punishment is not allowed. So the question is that the prohibition has been in place since 1996. And then there was a second tightly worded circular that was issued in 2006 again. Yeah? So why is it continuing in schools? And that is the question that we want to kind of start talking with teachers and schools about. If the government of the day has declared a policy that corporal punishment is not allowed, yet teachers openly walk around in school with a stick. So what does it teach children about how to obey law, and the law of the land? That, if teachers don't set example, that the law is for everyone, not just for selected people, then children will learn that and will express that in their real life.
Do you feel that maybe the teachers beat children because they feel it happened to them when they were in school, so it's a cycle that is continuing?
Absolutely right. And there is now studies that have shown that if you have experienced violence as a child, you tend to use it a lot more as an adult. And what we are again saying to teachers and parents is that it's time to break that cycle. That because it happened to you, doesn't mean that it has to happen to your child. there are other better ways, what we call alternatives to corporal punishment, what is sometimes also called positive discipline. That positive discipline is not about just kind of getting the child to obey you right now and here, but looking at the long-term development of the child. That what do I want my child to learn? What do I want my child to become? And then taking that view and helping over the long term.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having us. You're welcome.
I'm talking to you teachers now. Many of you actually use this as a way to take out your frustrations. You might come from home and you may have problems, and it's an easy way to go about it. Please remember that physical punishment, caning in schools, is only the easiest way. We have talked about this today. It's the easiest option, but there are other punishments that can work just as well. They're even more effective. So please think about that when you go to school, when you look at your kids. Even as parents, when your kids go to school, understand that they're not supposed to be beaten. School is supposed to be a safe place. It's a place to go and discover new things and learn about the world and look up to your teachers and ask your teachers for guidance in terms of what you want to be. School should not be a place that you go to that you're scared of, a place of fear, a place of anxiety because you're thinking, oh my God, today if I fail this, oh my God, I can't even put up my hand in class because they're going to beat me. You have to remember that all these aspects come together when it comes to corporal punishment in schools. If a child is scared of being beaten, they will not even have the courage to put up their hand in class and ask you if they don't understand. Whatever problem it is that you have on the blackboard, they'll just keep quiet because they might say, okay, I'm going to ask the teacher, I'm sorry teacher, I didn't understand. And the teacher's going to say, you're very stupid, and they beat you. That is not okay. It is really not okay. So please think about that. If you see it happening, do something about it. If you yourself have done it in the past, make sure it stops now. And children, you are not supposed to be beaten at school. Welcome back to this discussion on corporal punishment. Now we go into the community to meet ordinary Ugandans who have something to say. Today we meet a very special man in the upper prison at Luzira Prison to share with us how corporal punishment has affected his life. Today we meet someone who is on death row in Luzira Upper Prison. We first came to know Alyenyo Marks when he participated in a competition organized by Raising Voices in 2009 to 2010. He contributed an essay on corporal punishment, which the judging panel of the competition thought was very powerful. So what inspired you to write the essay on corporal punishment for the competition?
The first inspiration I got to write an essay about corporal punishment was that I have been a victim of corporal punishment myself. I suffered corporal punishment from childhood, and what made it even worse because it was the fact that I was an orphan, and I had the siblings behind me whom I catered for. Now we were brought under the care of a maid who was not related to us. But then this maid tended to be very hostile on our side, that whenever the caretaker was not around, she could end up torturing us. And that made me to try to run away from home. I was just about 8 years old. Yeah. And by that time I was now in P1. So because of that, when I came across the advertisement in the newspaper, I had to take interest on to write about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As someone who had corporal punishment as a child, do you feel it had consequences on you as an adult?
Yeah, it really affected me. It affected me in the sense that I couldn't manage to continue with the studies well. Because as I joined P1, it happened that I got a teacher who was very hostile. Whenever I could give some questions early in the morning and you failed to answer it correctly, then the reward was corporal punishment, and where I could use a metallic key to pull you from the ground when he has put it inside your nose as a way of rewarding you for the failure. So that one really affected me so much because I had to jump a year without continuing with the studies. Then after the parents realized, they shifted me to another school.
Why do you think it's important for people to stop using corporal punishment to discipline children?
it's really important to stop using corporal punishment because the effect is really very bad, especially on children. Because now, I myself being a victim of corporal punishment, I underwent a lot of suffering being subjected to corporal punishment. And I ended up hating myself. I felt like if I could just commit either suicide, because it made me to grow up somebody who was really timid, living under fear. At home became a hell to me. School was also another problem. So to me, I feel a human being cannot be brought up better, because even animals deserve their rights to live without torture. Yeah.
You're right about that. And do you think that it had consequences? Yes, you experienced it as a child, but now as an adult, do you feel it had consequences?
Very much. First of all, it hindered my education, because I would have not seen this kind of life I'm in today. I would have progressed with my education to a better level.
And do you feel that the experiences you had, these bad experiences you had as a child, have contributed to you being in prison today?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it contributed a lot to my being here. So I believe if I was well educated, based on the experiences I've got here, most of the people within my surroundings here are people who have not attained better education. Illiteracy associated with ignorance is a contributing factor to this kind of life which we have now found ourselves in. So if I continued with my education well, without being hindered by the use of torture that I underwent, I think I would have not seen this life here.
What about when it came to dealing with your own children? Did you also find because you experienced it, you also ended up doing the same thing?
Yeah, about my children, this time I don't do it to them. Because one time I only caned them, and I realized that I'd already done something bad to them because they failed to walk properly. And yet I did in love. I thought I was doing something to correct them from the mistakes. I realized it was a mistake, so I stopped it completely.
And what advice do you have for parents and teachers who use corporal punishment all the time?
I call upon everybody to be a voice against corporal punishment, because it's not a wise way to take in order to discipline people or to instill discipline in a person. A person deserves to grow up in a free environment from torture, because even animals deserve the rights from being tortured. So human beings really should be protected from corporal punishment.
Thank you for joining us on this show today. Think about it. Let's meet next week, same time, where we will be discussing emotional violence against children. Stay tuned.